Hot takes. That gym kit you love? It's basically your armor. It promises performance, power, the best version of you. But what if the whole thing is a beautifully marketed lie?
Look, we've all bought into it, haven't we? Brands like Lululemon have built these multi-billion-pound empires, selling us more than just clothes. They're selling us a whole lifestyle, a promise of wellness, of elite performance, supposedly woven right into the fabric.
So here's the killer question that cuts right through all that marketing fluff. Is that high-tech activewear you swear by actually hiding a toxic secret?
And that gets us right to the heart of this whole debate. Let's properly break down the promise versus the plastic.
And believe me, the gap between the marketing fantasy and the cold hard reality is huge. On the one hand, brands are selling us this idea of wellness and sustainability, but what are we actually buying? We're talking polyester, spandex, all sorts of synthetic fabrics, often coated in a cocktail of chemicals.
Right, let's just cut through all the fancy fabric names for a second. Polyester, the stuff that makes up most of your activewear. It's just plastic. Simple as that. You're literally wrapping your body in finely spun, man-made plastic, just to go and sweat.
Okay, so it's plastic. But is there any actual evidence of something a bit more sinister going on? Let's get into the chemical evidence.
Yeah, and the scale of this is pretty staggering. An investigation back in 2022 found that 1 in 4 pairs of leggings from big, popular brands showed signs of toxic PFAS chemicals. This isn't some fringe issue we're talking about. This stuff is on the shelves in mainstream shops right now.
So, what on earth are PFAS anyway? They're a class of man-made chemicals, often used to make things water and stain resistant. The massive problem is they break down incredibly slowly, which is why they've earned that pretty grim nickname, Forever Chemicals.
And it doesn't stop there either. Let's talk about BPA, or bisphenol A. This is another industrial chemical, a key building block for plastics, and it's a known endocrine disruptor. In plain English, that means it can seriously mess with your body's hormones.
So why should you actually care about any of this? Well, because the potential health risks tied to these chemicals are no joke. We're talking about endocrine disruption, possible links to infertility and even cancer, reproductive harm, skin allergies, the list goes on. These are serious concerns, cited by both health advocates and regulators.
Right. With this sort of evidence piling up, it was only a matter of time before the regulators started paying attention, and now they're taking aim.
And look, this isn't just talk. This is a direct quote from the Texas Attorney General's office, which has launched an investigation into Lululemon. They're basically asking if the brand's health-conscious customers are being sold something they wouldn't expect, based on all that wellness marketing. You can actually see how the pressure has been building over time. It starts with that independent testing back in 2022, then comes a legal settlement in California over BPA in late 2023. And now we've got a full-blown state-level investigation into a market leader. What this timeline really shows is that this whole issue is speeding up, not going away.
Okay, so you've got the science stacking up, you've got regulators knocking on the door, so how are the brands themselves responding? Let's take a look.
And this is where the plot really thickens. Lululemon's official line is that they phased out PFS from all their products back in 2023. But the regulators are now digging into whether the company might have misled customers before that. See the tension? It's all in that gap between what they're saying now and what they were selling back then.
Of course, it's not all doom and gloom, and not all brands are created equal. A recent analysis of the big players shows there's a real divide. As you can see, Adidas and Allbirds are scoring very highly on things like materials and carbon goals. But then you've got other massive brands like Nike, Puma, and Asics, and they are clearly lagging behind, especially when you look at labor transparency and circularity.
All right, we've looked at the slick marketing, the actual materials, the nasty chemicals, and the regulators. I think it's time for the final verdict.
So, what do you really need to know? Let's boil it all down. First up, your high-tech activewear, it's basically plastic. Let's just call it what it is. Second, nasty chemicals like PFAS and BPA have actually been detected in some of this sportswear. That's a fact. Third, the legal heat is well and truly on. Big brands are now facing official investigations for potentially misleading you. Fourth, when a brand promises to phase out these chemicals, that promise has to be checked and verified. We can't just take their word for it. And finally, and this is probably the most important bit, you have power. Your choices matter.
When we demand natural fibers and complete transparency, we can actually force this entire industry to change.
Which leaves us with one last unavoidable question. The next time you pull on your kit for a workout, you've got to ask yourself, are you wearing performance gear or are you wearing a potential health risk?